still happens, and the amount of dead fish that are thrown back into the ocean because they're not allowed to be caught is enormous.
So, but then what you're arguing is that 0.5% of the economy, and these tiny fishing communities who can't find other jobs, what we need to sort of pander to them and give up like trillions, you know, these big...
Currently 0.5% of our economy, because we're only allowed to fish 10% of the fish in our own national waters. If we left the EU, we'd have access to 100% of fish in our own waters.
Okay, so then if we leave the EU, we'll become some sort of fishing nation that lives all our fish then, I suppose. Or do you not expect that we're moving beyond a fishing economy into a trading economy?
Actually track that it'd be a big economic export.
Right, I think that question's been answered. Leo, would you like to get the microphone? Have we got any more questions in the audience? Harold, Harry Kelly in the back. Go on, Harry.
Yeah, it's fine.
Try again.
Hello?
Testing, yeah.
Just speak up, Harry, I'm deaf over here. Come on.
So, there are some issues that cannot be addressed simply on a national level. The biggest example of this is internet laws. Because the internet is a globally spanning thing, it means that trying to legislate it on a national level is near impossible, because internet companies such as the big ones, such as Google and Facebook, may put in means to change their services based off the country they're in. But a lot of the small people on the internet, say if I just went to a company that started in Britain, they wouldn't have specific measures designed to ensure it followed, say, US law. Bit of a ramble, but basically that's the setup. The internet can't be legislated on a national level. If we were to leave the EU, we would either have to adopt EU laws such as the GDPR, which we're currently following as part of the EU, or we'd have to come up with our own new laws to govern the internet. Yeah. Do you agree with that, the idea that we either have to adopt the EU laws or follow or create our new laws?
I think there's a vision of Britain being some sort of Victorian country what can't create adequate safety measures and laws. We don't. The internet, you're right, it can't be legislated on a national level. So why should that be consigned to undemocratic European officials and not the UN? Or why do we have to follow their laws?
Okay, so so we can either follow the laws, would you prefer to make our own, wouldn't you? Now, how do you propose that we create and enforce laws to govern the internet, and how we expect these people all over the globe to adjust their services and companies in order to specifically follow our laws regarding the internet? One of the biggest perks of the EU is it allows us to create large spanning rules regarding these large spanning issues.
You just said we could adopt GDPR and keep it outside the EU. What's the issue?
So what you're saying is by adopting this GDPR, we'd have to put ourselves under EU rules without getting a say in how to make them, or without getting a say in being in the EU. We'd simply have to just abide by their rules, the same as we do now, but without the benefits.
If we leave the EU and we're not tied to this undemocratic body, then we're consenting. And also, it's very strange to say that we can't internationally cooperate instead of being some part of some super state what overrides national borders, laws, fisheries to make laws on the internet is stupid.
This is an international body.
Is the Paris Climate Agreement linked to a political union, to free movement of people, to a £39 billion divorce bill notices? You can still cooperate with allies internationally without merging into one country.
Yes, I know that, but just saying we're shackling ourselves to an undemocratic body is saying essentially nothing. You're not giving any evidence as to why.
Negotiating with 27 countries when we have 1/28 of our influence compared to leaving, working with them but giving democratic consent. How is that?
That's life, pal.
What?
The thing is, you have to work with other countries.
My question's for the Remain side. It came out in the news recently that 3 schoolgirls from London who went to join IS, I think it was in 2015, one of them now has got pregnant and wants to come back and have a baby. So if we refuse her entry into the country, technically she can appeal that to the European Courts of Human Rights, and then they overrule our decision, she's allowed back. So how is that democratic to our people if our government can't control our borders, and then that's threatening national security as well?
Don't govern our own borders, we pay other countries to do it. At the moment we pay France to do it, which is kind of an inefficient way of doing it, but we wouldn't do any better of a job ourselves. And also, this girl, no matter the fact that she's gone overseas and she has been extremist, she is still technically a British citizen. And so that child has the potential to be rescued, doesn't it? Being a citizen doesn't mean that you can't be imprisoned or have law imposed upon you. The fact that they're saying that she can come here doesn't mean that we can't say, okay, you're going to prison for me.
The European Court prevents us from stopping proven terrorists who are fighting for ISIS from coming back to the country. Being part of the EU allows undocumented, unlimited immigration. I'm afraid that's life, pal.
Last comment, Dan. I'd just like to say, I'm not particularly worried about one woman and her baby bringing down the entire country. And so, one woman and her baby, I'm just saying that letting her back, if she just had the baby in another country, then that would be one more extremist in that country. If she comes back and we say, well, yes, you can leave, but we're going to have to keep custody of your child because you're clearly an extremist, then that's one person saved from a life of terrorism, okay? It's not simply about what they're going to do to us, it's about what we can do for this completely innocent baby who is just here to be born and doesn't want to be born into a life of terrorism.
We're going to take one more question before we go to the closing statements, and we're going to go with Ted. Ted the name, Sorry, Ted, go up your question.
For the leave side, you said you wanted to follow places like Russia and China and the USA, but do you not think we lack the population and like the natural resources to have an economy like theirs on our own?
Our economy is bigger than Russia's, for one. Our economy is bigger than Canada's. It'd still be equatable trading partners. We have lots to offer. We have the strongest financial sector in the world. There is so much we have to offer to the US and to Canada and to China in sectors that they don't have necessarily as strong.
So you want to be on that level of Russia, China, you want to be... Well, so you just mentioned Russia about 30 seconds ago. I'm still talking about them anyway. But you want to be on that sort of level to trade internationally and worldwide, am I right? Well, why would we need... So you're saying that, but it's a fact that 53% of our imports come from EU countries alone, and 44% of our exports go to EU countries. That's purely for the fact that they are demanding it more, not Russia, not China, not America. All our business is with the EU, not because of all the laws that they have, but purely for that's where the demand is.
No one actually wants to do business with Britain because we have to pay such high prices because of the common external tariff. That's why we don't do business outside of the EU, because we're restricted in doing it. Because EU regulations are so high the countries from China and America don't want to import to us.
Well, they are doing
We're
it
not
because
allowed to
they're
do
doing the business because it literally says 44% of all. If nobody wants to do business with us, then why are they still doing business with us? Because we're getting business, it's not an issue.
We're not allowed to import any American meat.
Well, I'm pretty sure that I can see American products in
We're not allowed
supermarkets.
to, and other, because
Yeah, but we're not allowed to put American meat into America purely for the fact that they're scared of cow disease and all stupid stuff like that.
Obey the rules of debate, man. Right. I'm going to be a hypocrite. I'm going to go to one last question and I'm going to wrap it up very quickly. Okay. Danny South, I believe you've got the question, the final one.
the pressure is on, Danny. I hope you
Make it quick, please.
My question's for Keir. I'd like to know what a no-deal Brexit would entail for you and what would think the best outcome of that would be.
A no deal will mean we don't pay £39 billion for nothing, to be locked in the EU without a say in a backstop. It will mean we can reduce the common external tariff on the 29th of March from day one, cheaper goods and services for our British consumers, and also it gives us a stronger position to negotiate a stronger trade deal. Without our £39 billion, the EU are insolvent for 2 years. Do you really think you want to ask German taxpayers or Austrian taxpayers or Hungarian taxpayers who are fiercely anti-EU and far right to pay more, or ask Polish consumers to receive less? That will break up the union. A no deal will mean we get immediate benefits and a much stronger negotiation position.
One last chance to comment and we're going to the closing statement and wrapping it up.
You mentioned the amount that we contribute, and I've got here that it's about £13.9 billion, but 50% comes back to us, and I think it's about £8.3 billion of a net contribution. So really we get a lot more back than we put in.
Right, Zoe, well, you got that microphone, I'm afraid I'm going to have to wrap it up there, Levi. Once you got that microphone, please can I have the remaining closing statement quickly.
Okay, thank you very much for listening. I know it's been a bit complicated. Now, we completely understand the criticisms put forward. We're not